All right, y'all. It is time to shine. It is time to shine. I'm your host, King Jewelz, Julian Smartrimple here. Thank you all for tuning in for another very special edition of the RTJ Show and podcast vidcast series. We are literally diving in to a few more episodes as we get ready to cap off our season 4 episodes, you all. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for tuning in. We are a lifestyle show that was created to spread inspiration to young professionals and millennial entrepreneurs who want to learn wisdom on how to shine brighter in your career or your business. And so if you are a millennial, if you are a Gen Zer, or even if you're a baby boomer, we are going to have you hear from one of our very special guests today, who's going to be dropping a ton of jewels of wisdom in their subject and career industry. And so if you are a podcaster, if you are a creative, or even if you are someone that is looking to go into either the creative space or the podcasting space, you're in the right place today. Now that you're joining us, whether it's for the first time or you're coming back for another round, you are considered one of our Smart Jewel listeners. And so shout out to all of our Smart Jewels that are listening in or catching the replay live. But if you are just joining us for the first time, you could also rock with us on Wisdom, Clubhouse, and also listen to our previous episodes on all of the podcast platforms that you stream your favorite podcast or even your favorite music artist. And so definitely just search for the Run the Jewelz podcast, and you'll be able to listen to some of our previous episodes from season 1. And we just started our release from our season 2 episodes. And so you can track with us and see how far we've advanced and progressed throughout the seasons. But I'm excited for what our team has been putting in work for the last 3 seasons, you all. And also, last but not least, if you're interested in being a future guest on our podcast, you can definitely fill out the link that we're putting in the comment section below in order to see if you have what it takes as a shining king or a shining queen to drop the jewels with our audience. And so we appreciate all of our following jewels that have already come to share their wisdom and their tutelage and their knowledge with us this season. Thank you so much. We could not have made this season a success without you. And so those are all of my housekeeping for today's episode. Definitely shout out to all of those who are tracking in on the Wisdom app. If at any time, Wisdom listeners, you have any questions for my very special VIP guests, feel free to put it in the comment section, and you can make sure to come on the stage and ask any question you may have for my very special VIP guests. No question is too outrageous or too wild. We definitely want to answer any questions you may have on the subject matter at hand today, which today's episode is titled The Benefits and Advantages of Being a Podcaster. And so if you are someone that is a beginner, that you have not been podcasting or even speaking, or if you're someone who is a veteran that has been in this game for a couple years, pre-COVID and even post-COVID, you can definitely learn about some resources, some networking capabilities, and just why you should be having a podcast to widen your audience and also widen your outreach. And so you're going to be hearing from one of my very special guests. I met this young queen at a conference that we were both attending here in Atlanta. Shout out to Black Pod Festival that was taking place this summer here in ATL. And she definitely has the whole New Orleans vibe. I love the accent to a lot of those who are from New Orleans or from Louisiana. And we struck up a conversation. And then I found out she was actually a resource plug to a lot of creatives, not just podcasters, to teach and to also let them know about resources that they can tap into and also benefit from. And so I'm even going to be learning along with you all who are listening today from my very special guest, Latrice, who's going to be coming onto the stage to share her jewels of wisdom on the benefits and advantages of being a podcaster. And so, without further ado, let me introduce you to my very special VIP guest, Latrice. Latrice, how you doing today?
Had to unmute myself. Good morning, good afternoon, Julian. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing well too. We thank you, Latrice, for coming on and rocking with us for today's episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I always get excited when I have an opportunity to just talk about what is available out there for podcasters. Because I just think if we knew that these resources were available, then we would utilize them and help us to be able to move our pod game forward. So I love. Thank you. I have to give me this opportunity. I love that you gave me this opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So, Latrice, what we usually do, Queen, we allow our guests to tell us where your hometown is, where you're tuning in from today for today's episode, and why is this an important subject for you to discuss with our audience today, Latrice?
Absolutely. So I am from New Orleans, Louisiana, as you stated. I chuckled when you said she has that New Orleans thing, or Louisiana, and I was like, New Orleans is not Louisiana. New Orleans is New Orleans, and the rest of Louisiana would be mad with you for saying New Orleans was all of Louisiana. It's a whole lot more to Louisiana, and New Orleans is a huge part of that. But anyway, I'm from New Orleans, born and raised. I currently live in South Florida in the Fort Lauderdale area. I've been here. How long I've been? I've been here off and on about 3 or 4 years. Um, and it's been a good experience. I've been podcasting since before the pandemic. And so I've been podcasting since 2016. And it's been a very interesting ride, but it's been a very fruitful ride. And I love podcasting very, very much.
I love it. I love it. Shout out to New Orleans too. I know in Atlanta it's like Latrice, some people be saying Atlanta is Georgia. So I ain't know if New Orleans y'all took over
You know.
Louisiana. Because I know people be capping like the young folks say, Latrice. They be trying to
Yeah,
make
yeah. People be hating on New Orleans because like other parts of the state be hating on New Orleans. They get upset because New Orleans is the favorite child.
right.
But with good reason. Who doesn't
Yeah.
love New Orleans? Everybody love everywhere I go. I've been blessed to travel the world and live in a lot of different countries. And everywhere I go, it doesn't matter what part of the country, what part of the world I'm in.
Mm,
Somebody comes up to me and they say, "You from where you from?" And I say, "I'm from New Orleans." Yes, I'm from New Orleans. And they say, "Oh my God, I love New Orleans." I say, "Everybody loves New Orleans."
of
It's a
course.
why would you not? It's a beautiful place, and it produces, beautiful art and beautiful creatives and beautiful experiences. So New Orleans
Yeah.
is all that in a bag of chips.
Absolutely, yeah. I love New Orleans, from the jazz to the food, and then also just to the people. Definitely some of the best people in the U.S., and I'm sure even in the world, to go and literally see the full culture and the full hospitality of the New Orleans vibe. And so let's start there, because that's a good segue to start with. Like, how has New Orleans groomed you, Latrice, into being the creative and the influencer and even the podcaster that you are today? Like, how has your hometown like groomed those creative juices and also influenced you to be a creative?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing growing up in a city where there's so much culture and there's so much creativity happening at all times. New Orleans is the kind of place where, and I think that's why people love New Orleans, because you can feel it in the air, you can feel the creativity, you can feel the good vibes, you can just kind of feel it in the air. There's always something going on in New Orleans that involves creativity. And I think that that there's no way to not be impacted by that. It's just woven into the fabric of our culture. Even when it comes to, one of the biggest things in podcasting is being able to interact with people and being able to connect with people and being able to entertain people no matter where they come from. Right now, if you go into a grocery store in New Orleans, you don't have to know nobody in that grocery store. I guarantee you no less than 3 people gonna say, how you doing? You all right? How you doing? What's going on? How your mom and them? All that other stuff, because we just interact with each other. We engage with each other. We talk to each other. We learn about each other, and we have these shared experiences through our shared culture that allows us to kind of already know something about each other without ever having to say anything. So it's a beautiful thing. And actually, when it comes to podcasting, New Orleans is directly responsible for me getting into podcasting, because I started in radio, and I was doing an interview for a course that I had created, my first course ever. And I did an interview on FM 98 with, I want to say it was Kelder Summers, but I don't remember. And at the end of that interview, I was so nervous. It was my first time ever on the radio. I hated my voice. And she was like, have you ever thought about being on the radio? And I was like, girl, what you talking about? And she was like, you have a really nice voice. She was like, I think people would enjoy like listening to your voice. And within 3 months, I had my own radio show on WBOK, which is a Black-owned radio station in New Orleans. It is historic in New Orleans. And I had my own show on there within 3 months of that initial conversation where the seed was sown. And I did that show only for about 3 months after that, for no real fault of my own. It just, it bees like that. It happens sometimes. But I got the bug. It kind of lit that fire under me where I was like, you know what? I really enjoy being behind the microphone. I really enjoy creating content. I enjoy putting together, like thinking up something, a conversation or a topic that I want to discuss, and then putting it together, getting behind the microphone and delivering it to the people and getting the reaction of the people and things like I fell in love. I fell in love with it. And then, life be lifing, and life did some things. And so I ended up putting that down for a little while. And about a year and a half, 2 years later, podcasting was kind of coming on the scene, and people were becoming more aware. Well, because podcasting had been on the scene for a while, but it was the beginning stages of like awareness of what a podcast was beginning. And a friend of mine reached out and said, I think you could do that. And, I said, I think I can, and the rest is history. So, but if it were not for that love from my community, being on that interview that I got through a hookup, and that person, that producer, that radio producer, just sowing that seed in me that this is something that I could do, that this is a creative art that I might be pretty good at. If it was not for my city listening to my show and calling in and making sure that they let me know how much they loved my show, and being able to have an opportunity to have a show on the historic WBOK in New Orleans. If it were not for those things for my city, I would not be a podcaster. So New Orleans is infused in every single piece of what I do, from beginning, to end. And I am unapologetically New Orleanian, but I'm also Jamaican by marriage.
I love it. I love it. Shout out to Jamaica. Definitely, we always give big ups to the Caribbean, the Caribbeans, and even the Africans that we have come on the show. But if you're just joining us, we're here with Miss Latrice, who is talking to us about the benefits and advantages of being a podcaster. Wisdom listeners, if you have any questions for Latrice, feel free to come on to the stage if you want to get any questions that you may have answered. But Latrice, we definitely gotta talk about how you pivoted successfully from radio into podcasting too, and the benefits of both. When we come back from this quick commercial break, we're going to highlight our VIP sponsor for today. We have a sponsor or an affiliate partner that we highlight for each and every episode. If this is your first time joining us, if you have a business, if you have a service or a product that you'd like to partner with us in order to highlight your business or your service, feel free to click the link that we're putting into the comment section below. But let's all take a look and see who our VIP sponsor is for today, you all. Let's take a look. So today's VIP sponsor comes from none other than ExpressVPN, you all. If you are a traveler, if you are someone that likes to travel a lot, you definitely want to get in touch with a stable VPN network, especially if you're going outside of the US. And so we use it with our team. It's very sturdy and also very economically stable for your budget. And so if you are a traveler, if you're someone that just needs a VPN network, you definitely want to track with ExpressVPN. You can receive a free 30-day trial with our exclusive VIP Jewelz link that we're putting in the comment section below. But shout out again to our VIP sponsor for today, ExpressVPN. But back to you, Latrice. We definitely wanted to see who our sponsor was for our VIP sponsor spotlight. But how did you see the benefits of going into radio, transfer those skills and those talents into podcasting? And like, what would you tell people that may be the benefits of going into broadcast radio versus broadcasting in the podcast world? Like, what are some of the benefits of both?
Yeah, so let me be really clear, first and foremost, in saying that I do not necessarily consider myself a radio person, because I was in radio for like 6 months. You know what I'm saying? So, and now that's like legit start to finish. You know?
Gotcha.
So I didn't choose radio. I feel like it kind of chose me, and I think that it was intentionally a part of not intentional on my part, but I think intentional on the part of the powers that be, the universe, God, you know, Allah, whatever you choose to call it, right? Because that's what it is. But I think intentional on the part of the higher, you know, being, the greater good, because that brief interaction with radio is what led me to podcasting. And so I really believe in my heart of hearts that radio was just a catalyst for me. It was just intended to get me to podcasting as quickly as possible. Because if I had not been in radio, if I had not done my little, 3-month show in radio and like figuring out how to make that happen and doing production meetings, trying to work with a co-host that just, oh my goodness, was a horrible, horrible experience. And having one of my good, mamas in the community of New Orleans, Mama Jen. Shout out to Mama Jen at Community Book Center. Hey, Mom. Um, but Mama Jennifer was like, you ain't got no business having no damn co-host anyway, And so like just really getting that love, all of that came from being in the radio. All of that kind of helped me to build confidence in my ability to be a podcaster and to at least figure it out. I had a foundational knowledge of how to use a microphone and how to produce a show and how to work with a producer and work with the engineer and all of that. So I don't consider myself like a radio guru, but there are a lot of similarities between radio and podcasting. I think, the biggest difference is how that is consumed. But also I think how it is overall kind of produced is different as well. But as far as the skill sets, that's all pretty much the same. And that radio gave me that foundation for podcasting.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely heard it's an easy pivot or easy transition once you get to know some of the basic mechanics of radio broadcasting. I know that was my major going into college at Hampton University because I did a senior project working here in Atlanta with WCLK jazz station at Clark Atlanta's campus, and that wanted to get me into learning more about the broadcasting field. I didn't graduate with that degree for undergrad, but it still opened up my perspective about going into speaking, going into training and development, and most importantly, going into podcasting. And so like Latrice, break down, like since you've been podcasting, you are OG since 2016, like what are some of the advantages that you've seen in getting into the market earlier on before everybody and their mama Latrice was saying they're a podcaster in 2021 and 2020 when COVID hit? Like what were some of the advantages of getting in early before everybody is trying to oversaturate the market?
Wow, I think the biggest advantage for me is that I've had an opportunity to be a part of really growing something and building something that matters to me, that has meaning for me within the podcasting industry. So because the industry is so young in and of itself, right? It's still molding, like it's still becoming, it's still figuring out what it wants to do and what it wants to be and what it wants to represent. And so being able to come in at the point that I did, I was able to like really make sure that what is important to me is represented in the industry and make that a solid point or part of the industry, and that's Black podcasting. I think it's so important for Black creatives to have the community and the connection that we need in order to really be able to get our art out there. So I'm a therapist by trade. I don't know if you knew that or not. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've been licensed in the state of Louisiana for the last 11 years, almost 12 years. And I'm also a licensed mental health counselor, licensed in the state of Florida for 3 years or 2.5 years. And so, the therapist in me uses the creative in me to connect with people, to educate people, and to help my people move their lives forward in a way that maybe they never thought was possible. And I think that includes creative endeavors. And so, being able to be a part of building some of these communities and connections for Black creatives to feel safe to create and to feel heard and to feel seen, and to feel appreciated. I think that's my favorite part about getting in as early as possible. And it's so weird to me when I hear somebody, like you called me an OG, and I'm like, I don't be feeling like an OG or whatever. I just be feeling like I'm still figuring this thing out too. But I have realized, like, recognized my place in the industry, and that I have been doing this for quite a while, and I do have a set of skill sets that could be beneficial to those who are just starting out.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely have an advantage because you've been able to see how the market has turned in favor of those who are podcasters and creatives. Because, like you mentioned, you've been able to literally get the tinkering and the kinks out and see what works and what may need to change or even develop as the years have gone on and podcasts have become more popular. And so that's definitely just like what you were saying, what we wanted to have you highlight. Tell us about the associations and the networking, or net weaving, as I like to call it. One of my mentors calls it net weaving instead of networking. You've been able to accomplish just from being a creative and a podcaster. And like, where do you see the market going for, whether it's networks or associations for podcasts?
Yeah. So I've been lucky to be a part of, like I said, just kind of building the structure and the foundation of support for the Black podcasting community. And, my introduction into that was actually an organization called A Pod Connection. I won an opportunity to perform my show live for the first time in 2018 at
Mm.
A Pod Connection in Atlanta. Shout out to Nicole. And so I'm not sure if they still meet, but that was my introduction into the Black podcasting community, that there was a community of Black creatives specifically honing in on podcasting as an industry and as an art form. I just thought I was by myself before that. Well, not by myself, but just I was by myself trying to figure it out. And when I was starting, some of the hardest parts was like, you come up against things that you thought, that you didn't know you needed to know. And now at that time, information was not as readily available. And so you're Googling, but you don't really know what you're supposed to be Googling. And it was just really difficult to get the information that I needed. And so, a lot of the things I just had to kind of figure out trial and error. And so, uh, going to a pod connection where I had other podcasters specifically, but also just creative people who were having the same experience that I was having, who were, trying to figure out how to monetize when, these organizations are not are kind of icing us out as Black podcasters and Black creatives and not giving the same value to the work that we create. And so we were having this shared experience, but we all felt like we were doing it by ourselves. And so a pod connection was the first time that I realized this is a entire community. And then at a pod connection, named Sean Moore. And Sean, his podcast is the Mindful Rebel podcast, the Mindful Rebel podcast. And Sean told me about Afros and Audio. And Afros and Audio has completely changed my whole world. It has been a beautiful, beautiful experience. Afros and Audio is a podcast festival, the first Black, the first podcast festival for Black podcasters and audio professionals. And it started in, I want to say it was 2018. And I was supposed to speak that year, and I ended up having to go to Cuba. I wasn't able to do it. And then in 2019, they did the second Afros and Audio, and I was supposed to speak for that one as well. And then, as we all know, the pandemic was like, nah, that's not going to happen. And so they reached out to see if anybody was interested in doing virtual. And I reached out because I, at that point, was doing 3 or 4 live streams a week. I was very familiar with virtual. And the rest is history. I've been a part of the Afros and Audio family ever since. We've hosted 2 very, very successful virtual events and one in-person event. The first event was in person. And we actually have our 4th annual podcast festival. Afros and Audio Podcast Festival is happening October 22nd through the 23rd. It's going to be a hybrid event in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So we're very excited to get back face to face with everybody. And it's a blessing because through Afros and Audio, it expanded my awareness of who else was trying to create these communities. And so through Afros and Audio, I became aware of the Black Podcasters Association. And the Black Podcasters Association is specific. Well, I mean, it's in the name, it's in the name. They don't leave a whole lot, to the imagination. And their mission is to unite Black podcast creatives and professionals who are committed to redefining the podcast landscape. And I think, it's about really creating and establishing a foundation that fully supports our creative voices and make sure that Black podcasters' voices are heard. And that's been beautiful. And then I learned about the Black Podcasting Awards. And so, it's been a beautiful thing to kind of watch all of these communities come together and be a part of growing them and seeing them grow. And I would like to see them grow even more because they're amazing. They completely changed my life.
Yeah, stay with that point too, right there, Latrice, because I know even myself, I come from more of a training, education, and like professional speaking background, like in person. And so it was very much so a pivot to go into like podcasting and doing things virtually, especially from doing speaking engagements virtually. But I never knew, just like you were mentioning about literally the communities and the associations for podcasters, let alone even them having exclusive like Black and also people of color collectives or associations for podcasters and creators. And so like stay with that point too. Like why should people that are just getting into the podcast lane or just getting into content creation, why should you be a part of an affiliate or a association or a collective versus trying to wing it on your own? Like what are the main advantages that you would say for someone who is still tinkering around with the idea of creating content?
I think there's multiple benefits, but I'm gonna try to keep it short because I be talking, Julian. I'm a podcaster, I be
Right.
talking, but I think I can give you 3 right off the top of my head. And so I think the first benefit of being a part of a podcasting community is that you just get that sense of camaraderie. And I think people don't understand how important that is to the creative process. Because let me tell you, podcasting is not easy. Podcasting is not something like, I think a lot of times people think they could just jump in there and, or I could just, get on the mic and just talk my shit. And it's like, no. This is a lot of work, you have to really like want to do this. And so sometimes the creative process can be hindered. And so being a part of a community of creatives, specifically podcast creatives, who understand how much work really goes into it, who understand what, creative block is like, it just gives you that sense of camaraderie and makes you feel like you're not alone. It kind of re-energizes you. It kind of gives you that boost that you need to kickstart your creativity again, because your creativity can be affected by your emotional state. So that's the first thing, is that sense of camaraderie. I think the second thing, or the second benefit of being a part of a podcasting community, is that you get an opportunity to grow your skills. So in the podcasting community, like the Black Podcasters Association, at an event like the Afros and Audio Podcast Festival, you have an opportunity, and even with the Black Podcasting Awards, you have an opportunity to learn from people who are doing it well. Right. So if you're a new podcaster and you're trying to grow your skills, maybe you're still trying to figure out what your style is, because everybody has their own style behind the mic. You don't need to do the same thing that you see the Reed doing, or do the same thing that you see, Horrible Decisions doing. That's their style. You have to create your own style. And so, but you can study what's out there. You can ask people questions. They have learning opportunities. They do workshops every month. Every month the Black Podcasting Association does free workshops, webinars inside of their community. They have a couple of them that are coming up. They have on July 19th, they're doing a webinar on everything you need to know about podcast cover art. This is an extremely important topic in podcasting, because if you want to get featured on Apple Podcasts, if you want to get featured on Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, you need to have good cover art. I think people underestimate the importance of good podcast cover art, because that is the face of your podcast, right? And so a lot of people slack in that area. So they're teaching us how to do that, how to make sure that we position ourselves to be able to be a force in this industry. And so, you get an opportunity to increase your skills. And I think that's extremely important. And then the third thing, I would say, is, family and community and just overall support. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration. There's a lot of opportunities for connection, especially within the Black podcasting community. But I will say, in the podcasting community in general, my experience has been that people are willing to help. People are willing to show. Like, it's a very kind of touchy-feely kind of industry, in a way that people want to share the information and the knowledge that they have. And so it gives you an opportunity to connect and collaborate with people that you might believe are, outside of your reach. I'm doing a show right now. I'm a producer as well. And I'm doing a show right now with E3 Radio. Shout out to E3 Radio, the Cube app. I'm working on a show for them now that came through a connection that I made through the Afros and Audio Festival. And this is a paid job. So I'm now getting paid for my art as a creative, doing content that I love, that I believe in, I believe will be impactful to my community. And that came from a "Hey, how you doing" at an Afros and Audio event, and so that's the power of making these connections and having this network, being a part of this community, is that you get to reap the benefits of connection and networking as well.
Yeah, now you hitting all them jewels right there, Queen. I met so many people going just to the Black Pod Festival, and even speaking and also networking, because I'm like, if I'm speaking, I'm gonna be taking advantage of all the educational components of networking and learning from other subject matter experts, and literally meeting a whole bunch of other kings and queens from all over the US. I think I even met somebody that was from outside the US that came solely for that festival, because seeing that amount of Black creatives, especially podcast creatives, in one space, I know I haven't seen that before or even heard of that. So shout out to Black Pod Collective and Black Pod Festival here in Atlanta too. But even like you mentioned, there's awards and scholarships and different funding that you can get,
Absolutely.
and even paid gigs. And stay with that point as we get ready to wind down in a second. Like, what type of positions have you seen that people can actually get freelance positions with in the podcasting space, whether it's on the front end or the back end or the front of the stage or the back of the stage in podcasting, just so people can know that there are people actually making money, Queen, in podcasting, and not just doing it for free as a host or as a hobby. Like, talk to us about the monetization or even the freelancing components of podcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think keeping in mind that there's more than just ads, ad sales is not the only way to monetize in podcasting. And I think that, people underestimate how important it is to build a good reputation for yourself, especially when it comes to creative work. Your work kind of speaks for you. And you want to make sure that that it's speaking highly, but in addition to that, who you are really matters in this industry, I think, because and not just who you are, like, oh my God, you have this accolade, you have that accolade, although, you know, recognition is important. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I'm talking right now more so about, who you are as a human being, who you are as a person. Because, like I said, this industry, the podcasting industry, is a very touchy feely kind of industry. We love on each other. We like to talk. We like to connect. We like to engage. A podcaster is not somebody who is, super, super introverted. Like, a podcaster wants to get out there and wants to talk. And we want people to be nice, and we want to be nice to people. We want people to engage. And that's a certain type of personality that is drawn into this industry, into an industry like this. And so, I think who you are as a person matters just as much as the work that you create. And so when it comes to monetization, being, having an understanding of all of the different ways that you can monetize. You can monetize, yes, through ad sales and all of that, but truth be told, that is not easy. Okay. They make it seem like getting podcast ads is so easy. It is not easy. Okay. So the average podcaster, the average everyday podcaster, especially indie podcasters, you need to look at other ways to monetize. And that's just real. You need to, Julian, y'all need to drop them little jewel things, because that's a word. Okay. Ain't nobody telling us that. But outside of that, looking at what services you can offer, looking at what skill sets you have that would be beneficial for other people, especially when it comes to podcasting. You could be a podcast manager, you could be a podcast producer, you could be an editor, you can be a sound designer, you can be an audio engineer, you can be a podcast marketer, someone who specifically does marketing for podcasts, because it is a niche. It's a niche area. Podcast marketing is not the same as other types of marketing. And so if you could really hone in on podcast marketing and make that a thing that you do well, you have an opportunity to really build a solid living for yourself. Like, in podcasting, there are billions of dollars that are moving through the podcasting industry. There is enough money to go around. And so the goal then is to find your niche and to carve out a space, a lane of your own, because it's still early enough to do that, right? There might be 4 million podcasts, but it's not a whole lot of people behind the scenes making those podcasts happen. So that community of making podcasts run is not growing as fast, because you have a lot of people trying to do it themselves. And so it's still an opportunity for you to make a name for yourself in the industry for a skill set that you have. And that skill set can help you get paid. Like, you can build an entire brand, an entire business off of that. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing, is being intentional about it, but also making sure that you're bringing what you're supposed to bring to the table, okay? That you do what needs to be done. Don't be telling these people you could do things and you can't do them things, because that's not going to be good for nobody involved, you know. I done been there before, trust me. um so yeah, did I answer your question?
Oh yeah, you hit it on the head right there. People need to know, like you said, Queen, that people are making money behind the scenes. That's what I found out about, because that's why I'm glad, just like your journey started off in radio broadcasting, because that opened up my mindset to know
Hmm.
that people are getting paid more behind the scenes of being a host or being a disc jockey versus being on the stage or on the set or being in front of the cameras or in front of the
Hmm.
audio. So I'm like, there's so many back end jobs in podcasting, just like in radio and television, which we don't really hear people talk about, or they're not glamour and blitzed and highlighted a lot behind the scenes. And so that's where I found out at the Pod Festival that people are getting paid literally the same way in radio and television as behind the scenes
Absolutely.
podcast staff. So you
Oh,
dropping the gems.
absolutely. Absolutely. A podcasting job is a good job. And you
Yes,
can and it's you will get longevity. Podcasting not going anywhere.
yes.
Podcasting is here to stay.
And I even found out too, Queen, a lot of these jobs you don't even have to be in person to do. You could do it remote. That's what I found out about the Black Pod, or not Black Pod people, but Pod People, the organization that was at the Black Pod Festival. They said a
Mhm.
lot of those were jobs are remote. So you could be in Cuba, like you said, Queen, traveling over to Asia or Africa and still be getting paid as a podcast staff member or a freelancer, and you don't have to literally be in the States or even be in person, which I found advantageous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's so many resources that are coming out in the industry to help you and to help podcasters do what they need to do in a easier way, you know. And so that long distance remote, like the show I'm working on for the Cube, they in Chicago and
Mm,
I'm in Fort Lauderdale. I have not met them face to face yet. And we putting together a whole show and I ain't never met these people face to face.
I
You see what
love
I'm
it.
saying?
I love
And
it.
and it's good. It's a good show, yeah.
Yeah. And people need to know. People need to know about these remote opportunities. I know people are getting real anxious knowing that some companies are making people go back now that stuff is open and open back up fully in their states or even in their countries. But yeah, you gotta find the plugs like Queen Latrice is teaching us today. You got to know the right people to educate you and to show you the way if you truly are trying to have a remote, off the grid, laptop style life when it comes to your business or even your freelance gigs. And so
Yeah.
I know, Latrice, we've talked about a ton of information today. You've been dropping a ton of jewels on our audience and literally teaching them and even teaching myself the benefits and the advantages of becoming a podcaster or even being a podcaster. But we always like to highlight at the end of our episodes a final jewel of wisdom that our guest wants to leave with the audience. And so, what would be, Latrice, before we get ready to pray you out and thank you for coming again, what would be a final jewel that you would want to leave for the audience today?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This has been a great conversation. I'm glad that I met you at the Black Pod Fest. And you know, this has been see again. This connection came from being a part of a Black podcasting community. But I appreciate that. I think my final, jewel for today is you got to go out there and get it for yourself. And don't be afraid to promote yourself and do what you need to do to solidify your reputation in this industry. One thing that I haven't talked as much about is the Black Podcasting Awards. But I'm very, very honored to be a part of the Black Podcasting Awards because in my mind, I see the Black Podcasting Awards the same way that I see like the Image Awards or the Soul Train Awards or the Lady of Soul Awards. It's something that comes from us. You know, it's like from us to us, right? It's like our love letter to each other. And I just think that there's something so very, very powerful about that. And being able to call yourself an award-winning podcaster is, let me tell you, that will get you on a trajectory that you really want to be on. Okay. And so I just think it's a beautiful thing that the Black Podcasting Awards is something that exists. And that gives our community, which is often overlooked when it comes to awards within the podcasting community or industry, but it gives our community an opportunity to shine. And how this kind of circles back to what I was saying about don't be afraid to put yourself out there is because for the Black Podcasting Awards, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that you have to nominate yourself. You have to apply, right? So you have to submit an application. And this is not just for the Black Podcasting Awards. This is for any award show that exists. The Oscars, the Grammys, the BET Awards, the Tonys, all of those awards. In order to be nominated or to have a chance of not being nominated, you have to apply. Okay, you have to apply. And applications are open right now for the Black Podcasting Awards. And I encourage all Black podcasters, no matter how long you've been in the game, to go to their website and take a look and see, you know, if that's something that you want to do for yourself. We have 29 different categories, and you know, it's an opportunity for you to take control of the direction that you want your career to go. If you're serious about being a podcaster and you're serious about you know, like really building a name for yourself in this industry, you know, being able to call yourself award winning is cream of the crop. And so you should give yourself that opportunity, you know, you know, put yourself out there. Like my mom always said, the worst thing they could do is tell you no. And and then you know life stays the same. So why not take a chance on it? So you know, I strongly encourage you to check it out, and to just you know figure out how to put yourself out there in a way that honors your skill sets and gets you the recognition that you deserve.
I love that, Latrice. And do you have to have the one drop rule where they could have a little bit of Blasian or a little bit of Afro Latina in them, or do they have to be full blackety black with the fro out and the dread and the micro braids and all of that? What you say?
Listen, we consider, you know, anybody who identifies as Black, okay? That's just really what it comes down to. Anybody that, you know, if you are Black, if you have the majority of your co-hosts that's Black, you know, if you identify as Black, then you're a Black podcaster. And that's one thing that I love about these communities as well, is that I think we do a really good job of highlighting every version of Black,
Mm,
because Black comes in a lot of shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, genders,
yeah,
nationalities, likes, dislikes. We got nerds, we got scientists, we got sports freaks, we got, you know what I'm saying? We got a little bit of everybody. Like the Black podcasting community is robust.
I love it.
It's robust. And the communities that are intended to provide support reflect that. And I think that's a
Mm.
beautiful thing.
That's a jewel in itself right there, Queen. We gotta drop and run those jewels for you. You could definitely get into the awards banquet, but you gotta claim Black. You can't be half stepping this thing
Yeah,
or
you
be
can't be on the fence.
half.
Get off the fence. How Cool in the Gang say, get your back up off the wall.
Right.
Okay, let's go.
Absolutely. How can people, real quick, Latrice, before we say a quick prayer over you, how can they stay in touch with you after today? How can they connect with you, build with you, and even ask any questions offline?
Absolutely. You can reach out to me. I'm on Instagram at Latrice Sampson Richards. I'm literally the only Latrice Sampson Richards on Instagram. And you can you can get Afros and Audio at Afros and Audio, and the Black Pot Awards at Black Pot Awards, and Black Podcasters Association at the Black Podcasters Association. If you follow us on Instagram, any of us, you'll be able to get access to websites and things like that. You'll be able to learn about upcoming events. For the Black Pot Awards, you can get the link to apply. For the Afros and Audio, you can go to the website and get the link there for early bird tickets right now. Y'all need to make it happen. I promise you, you will not want to miss this event. It is going down. Okay. So y'all need to make sure that you're in the building, and the tickets are as low as they ever will be. And actually, I have a code for y'all. I forgot to put that in the chat earlier. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. You
But
can tell
you
them. You
can,
can tell them.
it's AFAULSR. I put it in the internal chat so y'all can grab that. But you can use that code to get, I believe it's 10% off of
Wow.
the early bird tickets for the Afros and Audio Festival. I strongly encourage you all to make that happen. It's, I guarantee you're going to come away from it feeling like that was one of the best decisions you ever made in your life.
I love it. I love it. Definitely go and register, and also go and follow all of the handles that Latrice told you, because I'm even going to be following these, because we all need to learn from like-minded creatives like Latrice. But Latrice, I'm going to say a quick prayer over you, Queen, and then let you enjoy the rest of your day.
I appreciate that.
All right. Father God, I just want to thank you for Latrice being available and also being willing to share the jewels of wisdom that you have just shown her, how to be a voice for creatives, and also to just be a voice of truth, and to be so relevant and be so approachable. We thank you for her light that is within her. We thank you for the love that is within her. And we thank you for just the education that you have allowed her to receive in order to share with others, and also the gifts that you are continuing to develop in her to be a world changer, and also to be a world speaker. We thank you for this time you've allowed us to share today, and we pray that someone was able to take some jewels of wisdom to go out and make their podcast dreams a reality. I love you, Father. I praise you and I honor you, and it's in Yahshua HaMashiach, the Christ's name, I pray. Amen. We appreciate
Amen. I appreciate that prayer, Julian.
Yes.
That was, it's been a while since somebody prayed for me. I grew up in, so this will be the last thing. I know y'all got to go.
Go ahead.
I'm just do this real quick. New Orleans is a Catholic city, whether people realize that or not. And so I grew up in the Catholic church, but it was Black Catholic. Okay. Black Catholic. So everything about Black church, that we had all of that. We had all of that. And so we just was Catholic, and we was Catholic. And so I grew up in the church singing in the choir, and there was a song that we used to sing in the choir, and it says, "Somebody pray for me." You know that song? Have me on their mind. That's my favorite. Like, it's my favorite song, because I think it's very powerful for someone to pray for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, when somebody texts me or call me and they're like, "You know what, girl, you was on my mind." I'm like, well, you know what? It's nice to be thought of.
I know that's right.
You know what I'm saying? It is nice to be thought about. Thank you.
You got to check on your people. That's a jewel right there. But Latrice, I know it's been a great time with this interview today. We thank you so much, Queen, and I know we'll be in touch soon. So thank you so much. Have a good one.
Bye.
All right, y'all. Watch the replay.